site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Sale, sale, sale. A 1,200 square foot masonry house constructed on 1.12 acres of flat land located at Hermitage Road, Nevis is for sale. For more inquiries or more information, call Mr. Edric Stanley at 869-665-5634 or 869-469-3868.
Good evening to the listening and viewing audiences. I'm Edric Stanley hosting the show this evening because our great host, Everett Weber Herbert, of course, he might be somewhere in the Alps in Switzerland, or he just might be enjoying his birthday this evening. At the same time, it means that I am in the hot seat, so I bid you welcome and to indulge in your participation in terms of calling in and to hear your interests based on how you see things going in our federation, the region, and indeed the world. So without further ado, education. Our schools in St. Kitts going to be reopened on the 4th, and on Nevis, based on information reaching my desk, would be opened on the 6th. And I would say this to every student that gets this opportunity at this particular juncture in our overall development and history, I would urge you, once you enter into the halls of education, whether in kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, or at the tertiary level, I would urge you to take advantage of this opportunity, because it is vital for each student to learn as much as possible as the opportunity avails itself. It is, of course, a mammoth effort on the part of our governments, both federal and local, to find the resources to give you a free education. Unfortunately, some of us didn't have that privilege or opportunity at the higher level in terms of secondary education. Years back, when I was around, growing up, I always wanted to enter the secondary level of education. But based on how the system at the time was structured, I didn't get that opportunity. But of course, I never lose sight of attempting to acquire a higher education. Hence, I actually did it while I was in another jurisdiction. So I am pleading to you as students, like I said, whether it is at the kindergarten level, primary school level, or secondary or tertiary level, I urge you to grab it with both hands and learn as much as you can, because it's a massive sacrifice on the part of both governments to provide our students with a free education. Although it is not free, it is paid by the taxpayers, and just those of us who are working toward keeping the system afloat financially, we have to pay our taxes, and from that the government finds the resources to give you, the students, a free education at the various levels I've mentioned earlier. Hence, it's an opportunity that a lot of people elsewhere don't have. I looked at a clip in the past, and I saw a student just climbing into a window just to ensure he was part of the process and was able to get an education. He stole into the window and he became a part of the group of students. Fortunately, he came out magna laude at the same time. This is an example as to how important education is to you as a student, as I mentioned at those levels earlier, but I just brought to the fore a scenario that I saw in the past as to how some people throughout the world who don't have the opportunity to get an education. Right now in Afghanistan, the Taliban has rolled back many programs, and as a result it is beginning to impact on female more so than male at the same time. This tells you how important it is that you are a student, whether you are male or female, to take advantage of the opportunity given to you by our governments, our taxpayers, funded by our taxpayers, and therefore learn as much as you can when you can, so that you can become a productive human being within our society once you have acquired the necessary knowledge and equip yourself with the tools to advance yourselves in the wider world, the wider community, and of course in St. Kitts and Nevis. So I urge you, I am pleading to you that this is an opportunity you must not let pass. I brought to the fore the women in Afghanistan, and do you know how negatively impactful it is on these women who no longer can participate in the academic, social, and ultimately the larger part of society? Because once you have an education and you're able to reach to the level where you are able to have the tools from that education to help in furthering education within your country, it is a plus, it's a win, and again I urge and applaud you. I implore you to take advantage of this opportunity that has been given to you.
By the PM. Good evening, Mrs. Stanley. I do apologize because I'm a little late. I got caught up on the outside, and so I do apologize to you. Just to pick up on that particular point that you're making, I suppose you're speaking in reference to the allowance given by the PM to the students.
Not necessarily,
okay,
but
enlighten me on that
in a wholesome manner. Every student that gets the opportunity of entering the classroom,
okay,
whether luckily they are entering classrooms now that are air conditioned, most of them, and at that same time we weren't that fortunate. We sat on stones under a tree, and we were so happy to be there to get an education. But the offer that was made by the PM, that of course is just a little assistance financially to the furtherance of the education of our students. But when you look at the mammoth cost of education budget in terms of the dollar amount, it is a mammoth cost, and the $250 gift coming from the Prime Minister is minuscule with reference to the overall cost of educating our students. So now I hope I made it clear. I wasn't really referring to the narrow little gift certificates that had been promised or delivered to the student by the Prime Minister Drew, but rather the overall mammoth cost to educate a student from kindergarten through to 5th form, 6th form, and later on Prime Minister Drew has gone further to ask the lending institutions to lower the cost on student loans, which tells you that education is first and foremost and at the forefront of the leadership of our country. The Honorable Mark Brantley and Prime Minister Drew and the other people within both cabinets that are attempting to ensure that our children get a helping hand with reference to the education finances within our country.
Okay then, Mr. Stanley. Yes, I would fully support all that you're saying about education, and this is an area I always like to speak to, because I know how important it is in every aspect of life that one's get an education. In this day and age, some people think that they can earn and then learn, and I'm always encouraging the youngsters to be aware of that approach, and it's the other way around. You learn and then earn. Education touches an individual in every positive way one can think about. Self-confidence, ableness to help someone, ableness to contribute, to understand the debates that's going on around, in terms of competitiveness in the job market, in terms of generally just being a part of the conversation and offering great contribution. I would encourage everyone to realize the very importance of this concept that we call education. Education, of course, it's a human right today. It's illegal not to go to school. It's well, at least in the jurisdiction in which we live, and we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate because education is free here. In places, various countries in Africa, primary education you got to pay. And to me, that seems to damage and make the whole path to getting somewhere rough in the early stage. I mean, if your primary education you have to pay, I probably would not feel that bad if we were talking about secondary education, and even that in itself, should not be. And of course, we know that university education, college education is an expensive task. But here in the Caribbean, in our jurisdiction, in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and the wider Caribbean, primary education and secondary education is free. Every youngster under the age of 18 should be in school or probably just graduate from school. There should be nothing within any society that impedes these youngsters at all from going to school. I'm so happy now that it looks like they have recognized the Rasta people, the Rastafari, and now they are not keeping them out of school because they are dreadlocks. And so I'm very happy for that. I personally was a part of that fight. If I can reflect on my days going to school, and I always said that, I've said that many times from the microphone radio, that I've been to sixth form for 2 years, and I've never heard my name called on the register. I think it was about 32 of us, and every morning 31 of them name call, and they never called my name because they thought that for some reason I have an ideology that I shouldn't be in the sixth form. And I fought my way through 2 years of that. I spent a lot of time in the library. I was permanently suspended in effect, for reasons I don't even know about up to today. But I always stood up to the fact that I am entitled to an education, and so I did resist. And I would not say finally I was accepted, because even though I was allowed to do the exam, I was not allowed to be in the European history class, because the headmaster was our European history teacher. And so, but the subjects I wrote, I was successful anyway, and I was given 1 or 2 little prizes for that. But I always become very agitated when little issues gets in between someone's education and the system, and even though they themselves, and I don't want to go too deep into this anyway, it's illegal to keep a child out of school, but sometimes it does happen, and I'm so happy that even your young ladies who become pregnant, they have an opportunity to go back to school after giving birth. These things must be accommodated in today's society. We need to think a little more open and look at the end product, and the impact on people's life, people's family, and to a wider extent the society, and not to deprive anyone of their desire to be educated and to attend a school of learning. after realizing what I realized at a very young age, I myself didn't look out for any help, and I myself propelled myself to London. I went back to school, and I never regret one moment that I did that, And I always encourage people that, look, at any age you can actually go back to extend your learning, expand your learning, and so you probably can be even more so a contributor to the society in which we live. One of the things I encourage, that when people go to school realizing they have some talent, become educated, exposed to higher learning, that they should give back to the little society and community which they're from, in terms of even to encourage people, or even to depart your knowledge, and to be a part of the debate and shine some light on various issues that sometimes need an intellectual analysis or some kind of deeper thought. And sometimes we are trained for such, those who are, educated and, achieve a higher learning standards. And so it's so important. It's so important. Dr. Jew is doing a good thing. Once again, he's striking right at the heart of the concern of the parents around this time of year. A lot of people say it's a bit late. I think it's a bit late too, because school will be reopened, I think, next week. And everybody are trying to fill form here and there, trying to get that little money. It's a little money, but it goes a long way. It goes a long way for many parents. And again, I can see that kind of socialist tendency coming through from Dr. Jew, which is good, because there are various school of thought, and why not? You got to choose what is good from whatever school of thought, and use it within your realms to make positive growth within the society. And with the gesture from the Social Security, now this gesture, to me, he seems to be thinking about the grassroots. He seems to be thinking about the everyday people, what we call the struggling people, what we call the masses of the people. And he seems to have that burning desire to alleviate their struggle, especially at this time of year, because no doubt from last September or from last August to now, we have experienced a massive increase in inflation, and it's one thing, parents and having to buy all these books, having to buy all these uniforms, having to buy all the shoes. And it does dig deep within the pockets of parents. And of course, real income has been getting less, because I don't think anybody's income has been rising, and we have seen a 30% almost rise in inflation within the last year. And so that gesture is a positive gesture, and if Dr. Jew continue, I think he would be a difficult person to get out of office, especially if he leans, as we have been seeing him doing and continue to do, leans towards the concern of the everyday people, leans towards the concern of the struggling people, basically, to me, making the point that yes, we cannot wait for the trickle-down effect that a lot of them always talk about. We've got to ensure that there is an easier way, going forward, for the mothers. Now, it's a new government. Think have all this money. We've been told they've been sending passport left, right, and center. They want to do this, they want to do that. But still, the everyday people find it so difficult to clothe and feed their kids, sending them to school. And so that gesture, again, thumbs up. It's a good gesture. And I want everyone to realize that the concept of education is something not to play with, and to not to let anyone play with your desire, willingness, or get in the path of you being educated. Because I've heard before once you keep them illiterate, then you control them better. We're living in a democracy, so that shouldn't be a fair. Yes, you educate the people. What do you expect? The people's going to challenge your policy. The people's going to have intellectual options and opinions, and so it sometimes poses a threat to those who probably would prefer otherwise. That everyone just keep quiet and say yes to what is being done and not to question it. And I think education is the pathway to any society achieving its optimum, in terms of in terms of production, in terms of administration. And so I would encourage every Tottenham and Sam parents. I sometimes hate to hear parents say, I just can't wait till they leave school, because they are talking about 16 and 17. School just begin, and if they are not intellectually driven, then find that probably scale or otherwise that your kid or your child might enjoy, and will be able to develop and make money from. But no, school doesn't finish at the age of 16 and 17 at all. You're just opening your mind to the world, and of course you're probably coming off a particular curriculum, say the Charleston Secondary School curriculum or the Charleston Sixth Form curriculum. No, you're open to the world, and you can involve yourself in various distant learning programs and become directly what you want to become. I mean, in today's world, we don't even wait until we leave, fifth form to start studying elsewhere, because it's right there online. You can have that projection, you can have that objective, and you start working on it from your 14 and 15 years old. I am encouraging that too, because sometimes I talked to a young lady the other day, and she's trying to pass English, she's trying to pass maths, and she's 40 something, and it's like, what do you actually want to do? Well, what do you want to become? And she wanted to become a nutritionist. I said, look, you don't need really and truly to be wasting time with probably English and Art. I mean, I could be wrong, but there are so many courses. Well, I mean, these are people who can write and do things. These are not people who are who we refer to as can't read. But what they need to know, that they can move directly towards the objective in today's world. Maybe through distant learning, and you achieve that. You achieve, because some are still engulfed in that kind of thing where, you have to have English, or you have to have maths, or you have to, not necessarily at all times. I mean, enough and sufficient is good in order for you to pursue other alternatives, which is more hard pressing, which is really and truly your objective in life, where you want to become, of course, because of needs and the way the curriculum is being thought. A lot of people end up being something that they never thought they would be, because of course people grab opportunities, because sometimes they are far, they are few and in between. But I want people to get excited about learning, very excited about learning. I mean, I myself, if probably wasn't for the COVID, I probably would have gone somewhere very far and dead myself in something of interest, which is personal to me. But learning is an exciting thing, and with the level of technology and the constant changing in technology, you often have to update yourself. You have to go back to the drawing board, and you have to be on top of your game. You have to really be in that state of wanting to learn continually.
Well, I do hear you. I agree with a lot you have said, but I disagree with you with regard to math and English. Those are basic, mandatory subjects, and if you are not really proficient in those subjects, you'll have done yourself a disfavor in this modern world without those two basic. And you know something? It is a requirement in most cases at the same time.
Don't think so.
Well, let us agree to disagree.
Yes. I will.
So, but I was marveled when I heard the fellow from Guyana who passed 23 subjects at the CXC level or at the Cape level. And let me tell you something.
That's a lot to contain.
My son made history at Charleston Secondary by passing 12 subjects. And at the time, 12 subjects was unheard of. So he made history.
That's a lot.
But when you look at what happened with Roger Williams, he passed 20 subjects. But the last bit of information I got in this current batch coming out of CXC or Cape, this fellow from Guyana
Yeah, I've heard of it.
passed 23.
Well,
Now, let me go a little further. You mentioned Dr. Drew as giving this amount, which is a small amount, but I believe he is lazily focused on sustainability. And if you are not focused on sustainability of your country and peoples, you will not be able to be a good leader. But if you understand the mandate of sustainability, you have to do everything in your power to sustain your people and to keep them going upward and onward to higher learning and whatever assistance monetarily, maybe socially, academically, and all these, you have the objective, and you cannot lose sight of your objective. You are in a leadership position, and you have to be able to continue to lead and to guide. And as a result, I think based on the current hashtag sustainability to advance your country and peoples to the higher level with reference to world standards, world expectations, and the whole 9 yards. So again, I do not understand how the people or the Taliban in Afghanistan don't understand the value of a human being, primarily female. And they got a lot to offer. I went to school with some females, and two of them were highly competitive. My mother said, I want you to go to high school. I said, Mom, you don't have any money. I don't like to beg. I don't like poverty. And that is one thing that drove me continue to be in the area of finance to be able to afford. So I left here, but I never lost sight of where I wanted to go. I I was called back in school to be a teacher. But I was foolish enough to reject it. When the education officer came, we were on school vacation around August, and he told me, "You did very well on your exam, and we want you back in school. We spoke to your mother already, and the headmaster, they're waiting you." And I told him, "No, I'm not coming back." But that was based on what I was thinking about my peers. The pressure they would put on me, simply because we all have left school already. What are you going back to school for? At the same time, it was not my decision. It was God's decision to tell me, reject it, which I rejected. At the same time, when I went into another jurisdiction, I never looked back in terms of what I had to do to advance myself in education. So again, the whole thing is that education is the key, especially for black people. The whites, they are there, and the vault at the institutions, financial institutions, based on the coloration of their skin, gave them the key to that vault. But you, as a Afro-American, Afro-Caribbean, you have to be 2 or 3 times as good as they are in order to get into that vault. Where the money is, money and education, they are inseparable. Education and money. You have money, you get a good education. You have a good education, you work for a good salary. So they're inseparable based on world standards. As a result, we should not lose sight of the importance of an education which is monetary driven. Again, Prime Minister Drew has gone to the institutions, financial institutions, and has requested a reduction in the interest rate charged to students. Those who have gone on to the tertiary level, higher educational learning, and came back with the accreditation, they've been given an opportunity even to get land at $1 per square foot in certain areas.
In Nevis?
In Nevis.
I don't believe in that though.
Listen, based on the framework, the leaders have recognized the aspect of sustainability, and you can't allow these people with the higher accreditation, higher accomplishment in education to go elsewhere because other countries want them. They've already been schooled and tooled for higher productivity, and consequently, or as a result, these countries that recognized the aspect of attained higher education, they are knocking on doors on the doors for these people to come to their shores and to strengthen their countries. The fellow Ramaswamy, he is an Indian, which is Sunak in Britain. He's an Indian, and you would see these two. Well, let me focus on Ramaswamy. He has been a student, a graduate of Yale and Harvard, and as a result, his kite is flying, and he's going for the big prize, the youngest among them. And he wants to be President of the United States at age 38. 37, somewhere there, 37, 38. But he was hot. He was firing on all cylinders in the debate. It's just that I think he may have...
I mean, the young Donald Trump.
He may have made or shown his hand too early with reference to pardoning Donald Trump just in case Donald Trump does not make it and he becomes president. But I think that is a turn-off, and he would turn many people off with reference to his intent, which he could have held that card. At the same time, the fellow is well qualified, well educated, and this, of course, gives all people a roadway, a roadmap.
Challenge the system.
That is where the light at the end of the tunnel is. At the same time, he is not going to let up. And Rishi Sunak, two Indians running the two leading countries of the world, watch out for him.
It's early days, but I don't think the young guy in America stands a chance, really, to be quite honest.
Okay, well, a lot of people don't think so.
I don't think he can stand a chance. Well, a lot of people don't take him serious.
Well, listen.
He's easily...
They didn't take Barack Obama seriously either.
He's quite easy.
Barack Obama had the same intent. Fully qualified, fully educated, well educated. And he sees the position wide open. As a result, as he was the president of the law center in
Obama was.
Yes.
Okay.
And he held some well-established position.
Okay.
But some people said, no, you are not of the right color. But he saw differently. He organized and had himself in the mix. And he sailed right through. It's difficult, again, for somebody from our race to get back there, because you see what is happening now. Racism has reached a certain level in the United States to the extent where we have a mammoth task and an ordeal of the most grievous kind with reference to racism, which has perked on the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington by Martin Luther King Jr. And based on what is happening now in Florida and the rest of the United States, coloration and the white boys. They think they're entitled to everything, even though they may not even be, some may not be qualified. But at the same time, we as a race are under pressure. So again, back to my opening comments. Education is the key. And if you get an opportunity, grab it with both hands.
Yes, but the policy of selling university graduates land at $1 per square foot, is that a policy to encourage university graduate to return to Nevis?
For them to stay here.
Yeah. That can make them stay?
Well, some of them...
They can't buy the land and go.
Some of them have gotten the land, and they were, because of the value of the land, they were given the opportunity to get a mortgage, which obviously the land is almost
Gotta be careful.
40% of the value of the entire property, land and house. And based on sustainability, the objective is to keep your brain within your boundaries, within your country, to avoid brain drain.
I don't think that's enough, Mr. Stanley. The money you're paying me is at times, unless you are that committed to your country, the money you're paying me is the most important factor. The money those in America can pay me and the money I can make here. Unless I am dedicated to my country, which, and to be honest, how many of them graduate of the University of the West Indies, come back to these islands and hush them out, just jump on a political craft. That's what they do. Jump in a political camp and operate from that turf. That is one of the big problems in Nevis. Educated people who can make good contribution, no, they are the supporters of the NRP, or they are the supporters of the CCM. They not change regardless of what NRP do, regardless of what CCM do. That does not bring us to that point of positive existence, of using the intellectualism that we gather out there to promote our country. That is, and that negatives the whole process. Now, you know how politics run this little island called Nevis. You know, and I know, that there were educated people, highly educated people, who had to stay home because they were of the other political camp. And I believe that happened from both sides and both sides. The policy of selling university graduates, giving them that opportunity of buying land for $1, to me that defeats something which I would try to explain. Because with an education, you have options, you have opportunity, you are more of the stronger type in the society. You probably can command a good job and be able to buy land at reasonable price, just like everybody else, high price. What on earth the government is doing, further furnishing these people with all the options open and opportunities open after they have been educated, to sell them land for $1 a square foot, when the everyday man who probably have not been able to get an education, maybe that start from way back when, find it difficult to even get a job. Don't even talk about a decent job that they can buy a piece of land. He got to pay $7, $8, and $9 per square foot. But your university graduate, who you hope will support your political party too, you are giving them land. at $1 a square foot. I cannot understand that. That is turning the house upside down as far as I check. Those that find it difficult to buy land are those that's supposed to be given that.
Good evening, let's talk.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Stanley and Mr. Liebert.
Good evening. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, fine, man. You're giving God thanks and enjoying the discussion.
Praise the Lord.
You know, because a lot of the views expressed are those sentiments I hold. You know, I was just talking about the graduates, the commitment to the country. And I, for one, I got a Canadian scholarship. But I was a teacher for years, even before I went. And when I came back, I had options, you know. There was the central bank, and there was the government. And I to tell you the truth, sometimes I regret I did not go to the bank because of the difference in the pay. When you get in 4, they get in 8,000, and you're doing more work than them. Now, this thing about something I always complain about in the media. You have government policies, and you have the discussion. And I always say, how come we have all these graduates who could help to contribute to even refine the policies? Because sometimes, you know, they keep their mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
We're not saying you must come and criticize them, but you must analyze it. You take places like Barbados, so they have like the Economic Council, you know, independent people, but so that sometimes they contribute to the failure of some of these policies. And I really wish more of our graduates, intellectuals as we call them, would actually participate in national development. Because holding your peace, and some of them working in places, you know, if they want to organize it on a government level, do so. Because when I challenged Dr. Drew, he said he had an economic council. So I have asked the question, who are these people on the council when some of these policies are not really contributing to development? You know, so I don't know what you think about that. Now, this thing about the students getting 25, that's a waste of time. Our children must have an idea as to what they want to do. Sometimes, I remember when I was teaching at Bassett High School, I was the form teacher for 6B. And these children would do a lot of different subjects, and then when I asked them what you intend to do, they didn't even write it as CXC. You understand? So I said, well, why you waste the time if you know this is what you want to do? Why didn't you do it when you were in form? And university only require 5, 4 or 5 subjects. You read? 5 CXC and 2 CAPE. So sometimes it's to give parents pride. Because to me, it just does not make any sense. It don't make no sense to me. Because I heard one of the children who had gotten, must say 21, all the morning, all day he's studying. That doesn't mean he's smarter than the other children. Some parents and maybe their culture put the children under so much stress. You know what children need to understand. And another thing again, I encourage tertiary education. I don't understand why some parents don't want the children to go and study. But I have 3 children, One has a master's, one went to technical college, and another one is a preschool teacher. And I was even told about this child who just left fifth form. And this story about let them go and work. Let them go and look work. What then is that to you? You may say, well, they earn something. I recall when my daughter left sixth form. She went to the College of Further Education, and I was told, send the girl go work at least 2 years. I said, for what? So many parents sometimes stand in the way of the children moving forward. And I want to encourage parents. You may say it is hard, but the truth is there's not even much work, not much work available. So you might as well, and I am encouraging young people, take scholarships. Take scholarships. Morocco offering, but you have to do it in French. Therefore, if you know, when you begin to advertise the Moroccan scholarships, let the children know in time that they have to know some French. The same thing with Cuba. You spend 2 years of your life up there learning Spanish. As you could learn here, the other day a girl, a young lady, I think she was of Dominican descent, Dominican Republic. She didn't have to go to that. You know, so look for scholarship for the children in places where it is, free. Because why is 5% sound good, you know? But you got that thing on your back for 10 years, then you get a job even with the government. More than half of your salary going to the bank. So we want to encourage our people, encourage your children. People say, I don't want my child to go there and go there. Well, they're going to leave the house anyway. Right? So I'm encourage your child to get a scholarship. And this thing about give them the acre, they have to be in the country for 5 years. That is what is required with the government bond. I think it's 5 years, you know. So they can, after 5 years, and you give them, they could still go. They could still go. But I want to encourage our young people to aspire. Aspire. And the young men, UE is offered, in some cases, you could do your first year and your second year here, you know, where you work. So I want to encourage our people, qualify yourself. You hear the competition you're up against? People whose culture is to study, pass. And then you're going to turn around and ball. When all the Chinese, the Japanese, the whatever. In America, it's the same thing. People balling. What do you think about the affirmative action case that the Asian took against I think it's Harvard? You could tell me I'll hang up and then you could discuss it. Because they were saying that, look, this black person has lower grades than me, and I wasn't allowed to come in. They took the matter to the court, and the court says that the affirmative action was not legal. So what do you think about that? All right then.
Interesting.
All right.
Very interesting.
Thanks for your contribution.
Yeah, the affirmative action is illegal. Well, it's hard to disagree, to be quite honest. It was something put in place to encourage and to facilitate. But in this day and age, where people have to see people as people, doesn't matter their color or whatever. I think the notion of the affirmative action, have gotten a bit tired really, and questions going to be asked, and I obviously I know it will have gotten to that point where, because really it's hard to give admittance based on nothing else but qualification, giving admittance based on skin color. That would get tired in the end if we say that we are all the same, and but of course the history of black people, I'm not sure if compensation should be given through that avenue, but of course an education given to the oppressed and the suppressed for so many years would to me be the most appropriate thing to give, because as we are speaking about education tonight and the very importance of it and how much it can lead to the development of individuals and society and in the wider sense of the word. But I cannot help saying, yes, it's illegal, and but you can find ways to compensate the people other than basically and as I said, it's the most appropriate way, giving an education to, because I know so many people who have thrived off of that concept, you know, and it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but I couldn't imagine that the judge would have ruled otherwise, you know. Other means and ways would have to be discovered, I suppose. And I know there are a lot of other ways and means where the downtrodden race, you know, the black race or people of color in the U.S. can be and will be compensated or given an easier pass to the part of development, because of course education was and remain, you know, a major player towards black people's development. I'm very close friend with and family to an individual who have benefited from the affirmative action concept, and he's at the top of his game, doing well, and you know, he actually was the first black president of the North American Entomology Society, and a society that's been running over 100 years. And so it's going to hit hard. It's going to hit hard that affirmative action no longer has a place, or you know. But I cannot imagine the judge ruling otherwise about. Because it's based on not your qualification to admittance into a school or university, but on other factors, and it's troublesome.
Builder's Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builder's Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builder's Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builder's Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938.
Sale, sale, sale. Stanley's Real Estate has a 1,200 square foot masonry house constructed on 1.12 acres of flat land for sale. It is located at Hermitage Road, Nevis. For more information or for serious inquiries, please call Mr. Edric Stanley at 869-665-5634 or 869-469-3868.
Well, we must understand the concept of affirmative action, and it was designed primarily to level the playing field and to give people of African descent, whether you are Afro-Caribbean or Afro-American, the opportunity to be on the same level, which was a political decision. It may not have been a legal position, but it has gone on, and it went on for quite some time, and gave the opportunity with the concept of leveling the playing field for Afro-American, Afro-Caribbean students, not only students, but this of course was in an institution of higher learning, but it was challenged from that aspect or from that point of view. And at the same time, it was designed primarily to give economic opportunity to the downtrodden, so to speak, because of slavery, because of the lack of competitiveness. Therefore, there are a lot of people who were granted the opportunity for in business with that same level playing field concept, the affirmative action program. And many people who were able to benefit from that program did very well in the sphere or realm of business activity. So it was again a political decision, and based on how it was structured, those people who were at a disadvantage economically, the planners of that concept came up with this scheme or plan and leveled the playing field and gave economic advantage to the disadvantaged black person. So I can't criticize it, and I won't criticize it, simply because I understood the concept. Currently, in Grenada or St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Well, this reparation concept is, we are asking for reparation simply because we were at a disadvantage from the day of slavery, and therefore Britain, United States, Germany, France, Spain, they all benefited from what we as a black race laboriously put in place to make these countries rich. And therefore the chickens are now coming home to roost, and we are asking, give us a level playing field by compensating us for what you did to us. So reparation and the concept
of
affirmative action are similar,
related.
they are connected. Don't misunderstand me. We have taken not an organized approach or united front with confronting Britain, United States, and the other places that used us as a race in slavery. And therefore they are now saying, if we take a united approach, we might be more effective to get reparation. But again, it was a concept, affirmative action was a concept that came as a result of our attempting to get reparation. And we do need it, because our sweat, blood and tears had gone down in history. There was a poem where this stiletto blade, cane blade, sunk into our hearts, sucked our blood, and took advantage of us. I think that was written by, well, I don't remember the author.
Mm-hmm.
However, the concept of affirmative action, as I repeated, was a political concept, and it worked for a while by giving people in the business community and later on in the academic community a level playing field, as the financial institutions, simply because of the color of your skin, point you to the vault where the money is. I was in Floor a couple of days ago, yesterday, and a lady said, the fellow who walks in with a briefcase with the right color, and she wasn't referring to me, and a tie. They don't even question. But they have an advantage over some of us who walk in flip-flop, raggedy looking. So again, the concept of affirmative action shouldn't have been taken to court, but somebody smart enough to understand. And this guy Ramaswamy, I think he's the one who is now taking the matter to court, or he took the matter to court. I'm not 100% certain, and I would say if I'm wrong, I ask. Yes, you're on Let's Talk. Good evening.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Stanley and Naya.
Greetings.
Mr. Stanley, could I ask you some simple things, please?
Go right ahead.
Yes, let's look at slavery. Let's say we had slavery today, and our parents were enslaved. Would you want compensation for your parents or justice? Because this thing about compensating for black people being in slavery, I never owned no slave. I don't want no pay for no slave. Let me put that out straight. Right? Because I don't understand what this thing about compensating for slavery. People already got paid for what they did, the wickedness. No black people want the share of the blood money too. Why are we seeking to get money for something that was evil? We say slavery was evil, but we arguing to get the share of the slave money. Does that make any sense to you, Mr. Stanley? Think of it closely, sir.
I have thought about it, not just now, but there is a justification
for you to get paid,
for our to get our share, simply because our forefathers were treated or taken advantage of, simply because they didn't have the power to compete against the powers of the slave owners, and as a consequence, we should be compensated. To
so how explain to me, how would money repay for the debt of the people who was coming here on ships?
Simply because the slave people who operated the slave trade, the planters who benefited from the slave trade, and the large corporations that have billions currently, that foundation that came from the slave trade, which ultimately built large corporations, plantation owners, is the foundation of the economic cycle globally, and therefore we didn't get our share. We slaved.
Share of what?
If they made money
From selling people.
not only selling,
You want your share too?
not only selling,
So, but it doesn't
the
matter.
slave trade worked in many areas.
Yeah, but where it started. Look at the beginning of it. Look at the beginning. Don't go where the money was made. People were sold into slavery.
That is one
It was
aspect of
wrong.
it.
It was wrong.
That
I
is
don't
one
want
aspect
to
of
say-
it, young man.
No one could compensate me for selling.
Well, see, you don't want yours.
No, Mr. Stanley. You ever see the pain and suffering a woman go through to bear a child? How much money could compensate that, Mr. Stanley? That's my last question, please.
Look, compensation is subjective. Compensation is subjective. I repeat for the third time. Compensation is subjective. If a lady goes through, I mean, I'm not a woman, but I could imagine the pain that she bears to bring a child here. But at the same time, if she considers her time, let me just finish the thought, in childbearing, and she wants $1 million for that, pay her. You want, let's talk. Good evening.
Yes, now I find that analysis very strange. I mean, I don't vex with them, right? Because people speak according to what they understand, their perception. What we are saying, that the wealth generated was done by the enslaved.
Right.
And the little food, they actually had to feed themselves a lot of times, you know. Customers say, oh, that's not true. Slaves had gardens that they had to help feed themselves. So if they were to subtract the maintenance cost, the overwhelming amount went to the planters. So how on earth could we not deserve to be paid? And then it was invested. They didn't eat it off. So you now have corporations, you have merchants, investors and so, making millions out of it, while our countries are underdeveloped. Look at it that way. And we are the victims. So any kind of bloodshed was ours. So we should be paid for it. You know, we're not begging, you know.
I hope he's listening.
Yeah, we're demanding. I think people give the impression that we're begging. You don't beg for what is yours. That is why they are demanding reparation. Well, maybe, I don't understand. All black people came here were slaves. Some of them were free after the slave trade was abolished. But whether or not, if you came from Antigua, Jamaica, whatever, same trip, what did we get? I mean, some of them put them off the plantation almost naked. They had to forage for food. For wealth, that the thing, and they quickly sold it, like in Nevis. They sold their estates, abandoned them, which means they left the people unemployed. I don't think we understand what the people went through.
No, some of us understand very well.
We are far removed from it, right? We are far removed from slavery because you have to perceive yourself, see yourself there. And then you live in a country that is developing, providing all kind of services and benefits. You can't imagine, maybe you need to take up a history book. People that were almost naked. And imagine they say you're free. And on top of this so-called freedom, you have to go and put in 4 more years, which means that the owners had to squeeze every last ounce out of the people. And then one of them was saying, oh, I suppose he does want an argument. Oh, with blood? Well, it's our blood. Whose blood it was? It was our blood. Of course, I for one believe that Africa should pay reparation too. I always say so. It just can't be the colonials. It must be those who sold us, whether you like it or not. All the merchants who finance the trips. Because the information is there.
The merchant, they're from England.
You know? So, I'm sorry, gentlemen, I'm sorry for you. If you don't want, you will leave it. Maybe you consent to it. But the idea that, well, look at the Japanese in America got it. They went and they rounded up all the people, put them in camp. Germany was trying to exterminate the Jews. And they got reparation. Well, we went to hundreds of years, you know. It wasn't a little gas camp, not a little campment in America. Until it so affected us, we can't even think straight. We can't think straight, because that kind of logic, maybe he needs somebody to take the time to explain to him that any wealth that was created for the planters was done by the labor. As you say in Marxist economics, any surplus value, only labor can produce surplus value. Only labor, I don't mean labor party, only workers. So all the things generated in slavery was done by the workers. And we deserve it, and we will get it. All right then.
All right. Thank you for your contribution again.
The compensation can take many forms. Compensation doesn't have to always be money. Even affirmative action was by nature, reparation, or reparatory by nature. I'm surprised to hear that argument from that youngster. I suppose sometimes we need to, and we don't need to, because the history can recall. And if they write the history and it's so brutal, we probably don't want to hear the truth of it all, But well, the whole of London, the whole of England was built from slave labor. The insurance company, the whole shipwright industry, the building of ships,
And they did it the second time, the Windrush thing.
Yeah, the insurance company.
When Germany marched up Britain, Britain looked through its
Royal, the Royal company was a company who traded in slave and then went into insurance, insuring all these ships to cross the Atlantic with black people on them. You don't need to visit London, because if you visit London, you would realize, or visit France, you would realize, well, these places developed. These places, I mean, I live in London, and sometimes I look at Hyde Park. It looks like the money they maintain Hyde Park with is a lot more than what it takes to maintain St. Kitts and Nevis together. Yeah, these places got money. After 400 years,
I stayed at that
of not paying a cent.
I stayed at the Royal Garden Hotel in London, which is in Kensington High Street.
Yeah, I mean, not paying a cent for 400 years to plantation workers. Yes, we need to be compensated.
Sure.
In a big way. And the debate is on, and I think, good can become of it in a big way, I think.
Good evening, you're on Let's Talk. Good evening, caller. You're on Let's Talk. Continue.
And so any black individual who in the Caribbean or in America who feel like we should not be compensated, I mean, they are in effect saying that they're quite willing to go through the whole process again and not be compensated at the end of it again, But these people exist all the time, even during the days.
Good evening, caller. You're on Let's Talk.
Yes. If you think about it seriously, right now we are still being enslaved because a lot of us who try to earn a decent and respectable living, our own people here in St. Kitts and Nevis, trying their best to bring others in to destroy us for what we work for. And Edric, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I don't have to go any further with the matter. It's nothing to do with just Britain, America, and France, or Africa. We're doing that to our own self, right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you, and have a good night.
You also. Well, the thing is that we are in a society, and if we understand the light at the end of the tunnel, all we need to do is to equip ourselves with the tools so that we can go upward and onward and compete. So I kept telling people all the time, we still have slavery. At the same time, it must be redefined. Slavery still exists in St. Kitts and Nevis. Good evening, caller. You on Let's Talk.
Yes, Mr. Stanley, Naya.
Hello, sir.
For years, black man in St. Kitts Nevis was in prison for having weed. It was recently found out that that law was unconstitutional. All we get in is we gonna pardon you. How could you pardon somebody when lawyers in this federation, like, they never even knew something like that, but they get money to represent black people who went to jail for something that wasn't wrong? These are things we need to discuss because we're talking about compensation for slavery. Let's compensate the people for imprisonment or not doing nothing wrong. Thank you.
Well, as we go forward, caller, as we go forward and we understand the complexities of life, and we realized that the herb, based on the current knowledge at the time, laws were promulgated, and as a result, they were interpreted by the court. And the court at that time found that the person, based on the law, would have broken the law. But as time went on, have come to realize that the law was not natural enough to understand the herb, and therefore they had to rescind the law. And consequently, they did rescind the law. So if you are able now to plant, and they give you a guideline as to how to plant, how much to plant, and where you must have your recreational enjoyment, all that is part of the nation of laws whom we are. And therefore, if a person has been imprisoned based on the current law at the time, now the law would be expunged with those who were incarcerated, and they will regain their, more or less, well, you can't regain your freedom because you have already spent time in terms of imprisonment. But at the same time, they have now found that it is illegal to imprison a person who is found with the herb, and as a consequence, they have to expunge the time or the charge that was placed on the person's record for the cultivation of the herb, the marketing, and the money made from the herb in terms of commercial activity, commercial sales. So right now, if you are caught with a certain quantity, you're given, you're let off the hook, simply because we have emerged to the point where we have found it, or the law has found it to be illegal, and consequently the person who is found with it would not be in prison anymore, a certain quantity. But we know once you are found with a certain quantity in terms of its amount over a certain weight, you would be imprisoned, because just now the court has just handed down a lengthy sentence for some Venezuelan, or as the case might be, who had cocaine and also marijuana, but with intent to sell and to distribute. So, barring the cocaine portion, based on the quantity of marijuana they were found with, that came into our nation, they were imprisoned, and the court has now given a lengthy sentence on those who were found with it. Do we have a call? So, caller, I would ask you to get yourself familiar with the slave trade and go beyond the slave trade itself, and to see what has been accumulated economically in terms of large buildings in United States, Britain,
City,
France, Germany, Spain, and you will understand that we are entitled to compensation from the slave trade, because the slave trade had many tentacles, economic tentacles, many avenues from which money was derived, and therefore we need our share. So please find a history book, and not galvanizing yourself to the one aspect of the crossing the Atlantic with slaves, but to find and follow the money, follow where the money went, and you would find it in many large skyscrapers in Britain, United States. The corporations got the money.
still exists.
Let's talk. Let's talk. Good evening.
Yes, Mr. Stanley, have you noticed that government only talk with the citizens about this compensation for slaves? Not one of them ever going to Parliament here in St. Kitts Nevis and debate the issue and try to make some legislation.
I think so. I think they've gone into Parliament.
But to come together as CARICOM.
CARICOM right now is not lazily focused on the mechanism or the makeup as to how the claim should be put forward.
But that's the
But they have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to have a unified front, and eventually we will get our reparation.
Mr. Stanley, the leaders are going about it wrong.
Sure, based on
Just like policies in governance. The people should have the main say because you're looking for something, right? But your argument is not making any headway. That's what I'm telling. That's what you all don't understand, you know. Government don't care about this issue.
Don't say
Not one
government.
of them.
Don't say government doesn't care about the issue.
People down a blind rat hole. They're encouraging people to have a discussion when they themselves is not interested.
I think you misunderstood. You're misguided.
No, me?
Yeah, I know you're misguided. The objective is the people who are in Parliament are placed there by our democratic system, and they were sent there based on a majority of votes. So those people who are placed in Parliament are there to represent the people, and therefore they're supposed to be able to come up with a policy that might be appropriate enough to get the result that is desired.
Okay, Mr. Stanley, let me put it this way. Can you guide me to where I could find a written document? Not just talk but get results. I need something that I could see, hold, read, share. Because this is what I'm telling you.
Well, my first direction is for you to get a history book on the slave trade and follow the money.
Yeah, but you're talking about compensation.
Yes,
How are you to get to compensation without a guideline, without a roadmap?
Just pick up a history book. I'm giving you. Well, are you listening? Just listen.
Yes.
Get a history book, find out about the slave trade, and follow the money. The money is one, the people who sold us into slavery out of Africa, to the merchant or the ship captain who brought them to the plantation owners who bought them, and ultimately the planters, eventually, like Hamilton, and you name them, you name all of them.
Mr. Stanley.
Then you would be able to find what happened once sugarcane was planted and the refined product was sent back to England, France, Spain, as the case might be. And those corporations, although they may not be existing today, they might have changed their names, but the wealth from the sugar, from the cotton, from the indigo, the produce or products that came out of the blood and sweat and tears and ultimately wound up as profits, and those profits were invested in companies. Those companies may have changed names, but at the same time the foundation of those profits are still there. Even the companies may have changed their names. So follow the money. Get a history book, read and follow the money, and you'll find that they may have changed names 10 times, maybe 20 times, but the foundation of the, in fact,
yes, but Mr.
profits.
Stanley, my question to you, after you finish following the money, how are you going to get it? if the policymakers,
Right, well, listen,
but listen to who are they listening?
you know they made wooden boats, and eventually they now got metal boats, and they got steam engines. You follow the transition.
But how you gonna get the money from them, Mr. Stanley? They have a ton of lawyers. Me, I'm poor man. We can't afford to hire one lawyer.
No, you don't.
These people have estates.
The caller, didn't you say that CARICOM has to approach this?
Yeah, but they're not moving, Naya. This is my question. This is what I'm saying. They're not leading in the issue. That's why I'm asking you. Show me some document where CARICOM, the OECS, the government of St. Kitts Nevis has something that they have documented and sent off to follow the money trail. Show me that they're doing something.
Look, I'm not sure if there's a unified front on this matter as yet, but I know various countries in the Caribbean, Barbados big time, various countries in the Caribbean have made their bid for compensation for reparation from the slave trade. Quite naturally. You see, look, they got cities in England that's been known for boat buildings. These things coming from the days of slavery. Throughout those eras, hundreds and thousands of millions of people being employed by these companies. The towns are usually built around the industry. In that case, of shipbuilding. So you can't even measure the wealth that was accrued from enslaving people here in the Caribbean and in the Americas. Yes, we have a right to be compensated. And not only that, they have inflicted us with all kind of disease and all kind of thing that we never knew about. Our health situation here in the Caribbean has been grossly affected because of plantation food over the 400 years, pure pork and starchy food. We suffer from sugar. We suffer from high blood pressure and a lot of things. Slavery have cut through every aspect of Caribbean life, and it's so evident all around us. I mean, even today, some of our leaders say that they don't even want to detach themselves from the Privy Council, or they don't even want to detach themselves from the British royals. I mean, we have become so comfortable, in the evils of that was inflicted upon us, that we find it even a difficult task to free ourselves. It's no end to what we should be getting in terms of compensation from these slave drivers and slave masters, the British royals, France. If you go to these places, you go to France, go to Paris, go to these places, and you and then come back and look at the Caribbean, look at us, and how we still find ourselves victims of a system in every respect, our legal system, our educational system, everything. Yes, we ought to be compensated, and I think Caribbean governments really should put down their foot on that in a big way, especially now, they're trying to be friendly with us through this Commonwealth and other little things. Now that they fear Russia is becoming friendly with us in Africa and so forth, maybe this is the time to demand it, in a big way, and see the realization of it. Even though, of course, it takes a lot of administrative work and so forth. I think governments throughout the region should probably put committees in place, serious committees, that they can come up with something conclusive about the reparation matter.
Naya, you remember the issue of the Windrush people from Nevis?
Yeah, yes.
You remember they was represented by the leader of Nevis?
Yes.
It
was said.
Right.
Yes.
So why can't we have that kind of representation on this issue?
Well, we have
You
that.
understand what I'm saying now?
Well, we have that. We have that, and I'm not sure if it's correct to say that that they were represented by a leader, by the leader of Nevis. The leader of
Yeah,
Nevis did make a speech as it relates to them that was far-reaching, positively,
we got an apology.
but continue, sir.
So, all right, now.
Yeah, I think you need to really grasp the implication of 400 years of slavery and how much it have really affect the people here in the Caribbean and the imbalance throughout the whole globe, because I mean look what's going on in America today. You know, the racism, you know, the breakdown of so much values because of racism and the bloodshed throughout the world because of racism. A lot of this racial thing find its foundation in plantation slavery here in the Americas and the Caribbean, you know.
Good evening, let's talk.
Yes, good evening again. He needs to check Sir Hilary Becker's. A lot of work and document. He said he wants the documentation and the plans. Or maybe he can go to the CARICOM thing. Each country we have a local reparation committee, you know.
Yes,
Kind of Astapan, I think, must be the chairman. I think all the countries have it, you know. But if he wants the documentation, he could check Sir Hilary Becker's site. I don't know if he has a site or be just on the UE.
Yeah.
You know what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
I think he made presentation
Yes.
even to the British Parliament.
Yes.
And further thing has been made, so he wants to read the document. So that should give him a lead. Now go to the caricom.org site and see what is there. All right then.
Thank you for your contribution.
But I think he shed some light, and I think some parallel can be drawn between the Rasta people's situation being locked up and had to face such tribulation because of the herb, and now he's free. And, you know, it's almost like that, because plantation slavery had laws surrounded it, you know. I mean, in 1834, that was an act by the British Parliament to end slavery and for the apprenticeship period to continue until 1838. All of these was laws put in place, and of course, then, you know, they free the slave. Almost the same thing with the cannabis, because trust me, you know, I've known people who really paid some huge fines and suffer a lot because of the misunderstanding, because that's what it was, misunderstanding, and almost painful, because they didn't do no research themselves, especially Caribbean leaders, them just following America, and they can't do nothing unless the America approve, you know. And so we found ourselves suffer a lot. I mean, my good friend over there, he had to pay 15,000. My good friend in Hermitage, they had to pay 15,000. My good friend in Hamilton, he had to pay 50,000. I mean, these are monies we're talking about, people's money. You know, you get hold up with a spliff, you got to split 10,000. You know, you've been locked away for so long. I myself was locked up for no reason, I don't even know. You know, and it's just, you know, I'm there, but I feel good, because I don't know. Some taxi man been dropping me somewhere. Next thing they search the place and they find all these herbs, and next thing now is locked up too. You know, and it's like, wow. And of course, for me, I could bear it, because I know I had, you know, but it really dents into the life of some people's career. You know, good cricketers, good cricketers, you know, good sportsmen, you know, who have their life been destroyed by some law which the Caribbean government never even have stopped. And if they listen to the University of the West Indies, who've been doing research into this thing for a very long time, they probably would have, but no, they want to hear from the American university and the American scientists and the American this and the American that, you know, and have their brothers and sisters locked away, have young people being criminalized, you know, without even a look into what is really going on. But I'm happy that we got to that point, and I hear them say the Rastas are not upset. Not upset, we're vexed. You know, we need compensation in a big way, you know, a big way. I know one guy pay 14, he go back and pay 10. I mean, we're talking about money. We're talking about dollars what people work for. Some people have to run away from Nevis and never come back. And I'm sure. So there are some parallel can be drawn from the Enlightenment, now that slave was a crime against humanity, and also the locking up of people, as they was doing just the other day, and criminalize them is also a crime against humanity as well. So some parallel can be drawn between what happened to the black race here in the Caribbean and America, and to those who have suffered also wrongly because of the possession of marijuana. And they have a lot more work to do in that regards, okay? Because I don't know if we are one region, a boat sailing from St. Vincent, come down here with some marijuana, what the people them should end up in jail for and all these kind of things, So as I said, they bring it to help our industry here, which we are trying to get off the ground. There's a lot of things need to come together here in terms of customs, custom duties. CARICOM should be now something where we have relaxed custom laws, custom duties, throughout the region. This is a lot to be asked for still, as it relates to the herbs. And I support what I understood that the Premier is saying about it. This half-hearted approach now work. If I'm going to free it up like the Canadians do. And if I'm going to not free it up, well, don't free it up. This half-stepping approach. But, the government want to make money. And that's the only reason why they're half-stepping. The government want to make money because there is a lot of money to be made. But the thing is, only them alone want to make money, because in everything that's been saying, all the laws that's been passed, and they're trying to help the Rastafarians going to be front and center. They're not giving us the right to sell one spliff, not even once. They have all the rights to sell what they intend to sell. But no one will sell, nobody will sell but the government. So we have ways to go as well. Going forward. Nothing new, nothing changed, nothing strange, really.
Well, you mentioned about the boat coming from Grenada and so on with marijuana. The thing is, based on the quantity, it is determined by the customs officer or the police department, as the case might be. The intent of that quantity, and because of the voluminous amount regarding the quantity, they have somewhat suspected that the intent is to distribute, and there are still laws on the books for the distribution and the commercialization of that particular herb, but we don't have a license to commercialize it, distribute it in St. Nevis, coming from a boat, traveling from St. Vincent.
Yes, or brothers over there.
So
wherever the same situation, same industry.
Wherever you are, every county, every state
have its own laws.
Has its own laws, and based on that, if you want to take out a business license to the extent where you are an entity, a commercial entity, that gives you the authority to sell in this
but that's not on the table.
Local area. You can't get it.
That's not on the table. According to the laws that was just put in place, I don't think you can have a license to sell.
Well, I don't know exactly how the laws are promulgated, but at the same time, it is only fair, right, and proper for you, if you are shipping agency to have a ship coming from another section of the OECS, you want to land that product in St. Kitts Nevis, it is only, again, right, fair and proper for you to have a license to sell and distribute in.
But that's why I say the laws need to be developed in that respect, you know, because as far as I know, in this industry, a lot of collaboration gonna have to go on, you know, in terms of dealing with a country across the region to maybe substantiate your supply, maybe to hold down the market. A lot of that gonna have to take place anyway, you know, in this trade, I suppose.
Okay. Thank you for all your contributions, and this show repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and listen tomorrow beginning at 8 o'clock for the Honorable Mark Brantley. Good night.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company.